Welcome back to another episode of Love, Life, and Legacy, the podcast dedicated to helping you navigate these hypersexualized times of ours. And in today's episode, I'm interviewing Stefany and Fernando. These are warriors, heavenly warriors, that are representing High Noon down in Spanish-speaking America, down in Costa Rica and Ecuador/Brazil. You'll figure out what I'm talking about. But we have an entire kind of mirror organization down in the South, and they have their own podcast, they have their own Instagram pages, they have their own website. They are doing their own programs. They're killing it. They're doing so well. And so I wanted to interview the people who are actually making this possible so that you can understand how High Noon is growing. It's not growing symmetrically yet, right? There's some places that it's growing faster than others, but in Latin America, they're off to the races. So I really want you to understand not only what's happening, but who's behind what's happening. You met Melissa, who's the chapter leader, but now you're going to meet Fernando and Stefany. So welcome them to the podcast, everybody. There's some nervous energy in this room. We got some special guests, everybody. We have a whole nother High Noon that you probably don't even know about. There's a High Noon Spanish Instagram page. There's a High Noon Portuguese Instagram page. There's a whole nother podcast in Spanish. Where are you people? If you don't know about this, what is wrong with you? And in the event that you're curious about who is this other High Noon, that's what we're going to get into, because we have, chapters, and you've met all the chapter leaders on this podcast, but you don't know the people behind the people. Melissa looks so good because she has good people behind her helping her, and these are the people. We have Stefany Obano. Is it Obano or Obano or Obando? It's this silent D. Obando. Obando.
Yeah, that one. Obando.
Obando. Okay.
Yeah.
Stefany Obando. And then Fernando is a part of the Barrentes tribe, who strategically placed around the world are taking over High Noon. We have his parents are part of School of Love. His brother has been part of High Noon in different capacities, and now he works for us. So welcome Stefany and Fernando to the podcast.
Hi, everybody. Hello, Andrew, from the other side of the world. Almost.
Yeah.
And you know what's crazy is that we have been coexisting in the High Noon air for a long time, and we've never met until like a month ago. I just finally went to Brazil and met with Fernando and Stefany and Samara and Melissa for the first time that I've seen most of them face to face. So they are real people, I can confirm. That was actually why I went down there, just to make sure you weren't AI. You can never tell. I'm glad that you're real people. And Fernando, just so you know, if you ever want to get Fernando in a really good mood, you need to play board games with him, because he loses his mind apparently. He was laughing his face off. So, it may look serious.
I like it. I like to laugh.
So, who are you guys? Starting with Stefany. Who are you? Who's Stefany? Where were you born? Like, there's a bunch of people who don't know anything about you. So, who's Stefany?
Well, Stefany is a person from Ecuador. I am from Ecuador. I was born there, raised them, and yeah, I love Ecuador a lot. I have parents. My mom is from Brazil. My dad is actually from Colombia, but we live our whole life in Ecuador. And I have a brother too, Jonathan. And yeah, I am an environmental engineer. What else? I did STF Europe a long time ago, and that's actually where I met High Noon for the first time, and I knew that High Noon existed. And yeah, and what else? And I am blessed. I think that's important to mention. I am blessed. I received the blessing last year with my husband Gabriel. He's Brazilian, so that's why like a year ago I am living here in Brazil. Now I am here in Brazil. Yeah, and I've been part of High Noon since 2020, since actually High Noon Latin America existed, right, in 2020. Part of the first volunteers that were working for High Noon. And yeah, I've been here since then, and I never left. Yeah,
We've
and
tried on many occasions to get rid of Stefany, and she just refuses. Lawsuits.
yeah,
It's been a big deal.
exactly. Once you are in, you cannot get out.
She's like a vampire. I see. If you invite them in, you can't kick them out. So wait, in your couple, which language do you speak in between you and your husband?
Oh, so I speak in Spanish and he speaks in Portuguese, and we understand each
Wow.
other somehow. Sometimes I wonder though if he actually understands me, but I think he does.
You could be on a completely different like wavelength about everything. You could think totally different things and be forming two different lives and not even know it. That's
Yeah.
amazing. That must be weird to watch somebody speaking in Portuguese and somebody speaking Spanish. And, I don't know. It's interesting. I also want to know about your dad because in America's huge, right?
Yeah.
Latin America is huge too. But moving from one state to another in America is not the biggest deal unless you go from like New York to California. Cultures are very different weather. But from Colombia to Ecuador, is it that big of a deal that it's all Spanish speaking? Is it culturally like a huge difference? Like, oh my God, how can I exist? How can I survive in this new country? Or is it just like moving to another state?
I think it depends. I think, yeah, every country in Latin America, even though we have, yeah, the same language, it's pretty different, like in a lot of things. And yeah, he moved because he's from a really small town in Colombia, like really small. That's where my grandparents lived. And he moved to Ecuador in Quito, that is like the capital city, to study. And so he moved there and stayed there. And he met the church there and everything. So it's basically, he's more Ecuadorian than Colombian. Even he thinks that, right? But he was born technically in Colombia, yeah. But it is, I would say it's pretty different. Not so different from like Europe and Latin America. That's a really big difference. But it is still different, every culture and every, yeah, country.
Got it. Thank you. And who's Fernando? Who are you? Who are you, man?
I am Fernando. Yeah, I am from Costa Rica, the smallest country in Central America, but the most beautiful, in my opinion. But yeah, my parents are both from Costa Rica. I was born in 1998, so I'm 26 years old. As you said, right, my family is very involved with High Noon, and we are not only trying to get control of High Noon, but the whole American continent. Because my brother is in the USA, my sister is living in Uruguay, and I'm right in the center. So we're going to dominate the whole continent. Yeah,
I like it.
yeah. And yes, I'm. What else? Yeah, I'm blessed. I'm blessed
Nah.
with a beautiful sister from Japan. We were blessed last year in Korea, and she's still living in Japan, and I'm still living in Costa Rica. We're planning to live in Costa Rica, but for the time being, we're in different countries. Yeah, but it's nice. Yeah. And
Yeah.
yes, yeah. That's the most important. Yes.
Okay. And so, Stefany, you got into it a bit. About how you were introduced to High Noon, but give us a little bit more detail. Like, was it shocking to hear this kind of stuff, or were you like, oh yeah, of course?
um, yeah, I think it was shocking a little bit. But I mean, to be honest, the first time I heard about Hainan, I wasn't really like, wow, Hainan is the best thing ever, and I want to be part of this. To be honest, I was like, oh, this is great, and I think this will never be in Latin America. That was the first thing I thought. But I never thought like, oh, I want to be involved in this. I thought that pornography and masturbation was nothing. It has nothing to do with me. It was like, oh, that's Hainun's problem. It's not my problem. To be honest, that's what I thought at the beginning.
To just,
Uh,
you were very arrogant and judgmental.
yeah,
That's what you're saying.
yeah, basically.
No, no, no.
No, it was just, yeah, it was just like, it's not my problem, right? I was like, it's other
Sure.
people's problem. And yeah, and then the time passed by. I finished STF. I come back home, and then the whole Corona thing happened. And then I heard from, I mean, I saw in Facebook that Karina, I knew Karina a little bit, posted something about Haina. I was like, wow, I know this and I know Karina. What's happening? And then it was the summit, the 24-hour summit, the first one Hainon had. And I was like, wow, I think I can. I am not doing anything, right? Nobody was doing anything at the time. So I was like, oh, I can help. So I asked, and then I helped with the translation of the summit that year. And I think that was most, I don't know if shocking, but like I saw so many testimonies, I heard so many stories from people that were involved in Hainan. I was like, oh, I understood more of like what Hainan was about. It was not just about a problem, right? It was way more than that. So I really like it. I really like the environment, even though it was online and everything. I really felt the environment was really amazing. It was really this culture of like, living without shadows, literally, and everybody wants that, right? So, and then I started getting involved. I helped first as a translator. We translate all the content into Spanish, mostly accent, right? It is the main program that we have in Hainan. And while I was translating, right, I was kind of doing the course, right? I was doing the program because I needed to understand in order to translate, right? And then I understood so many things. And yeah, I understood that it's not just about like, oh, this is a huge problem. It's about really like who you are and connection with God and through parents and your family and your community. It's all about connection, I would say. And I understood that while doing the program, kind of. And I really like it. And I understood a lot. Um, yeah. And then I was starting being a facilitator and translating more. And then Hainan Latin America was growing more and more. And then we started having groups in Spanish and more content. Yeah, so it was little by little, like helping and everything I could. And yeah, mostly in Spanish, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how I get here.
So you got kind of roped in. You didn't have much to do. You liked the cause, and then Karina kind of asked you, I'm guessing, and then you just said yes and yes to more and more and more and more.
Yeah, basically. And yeah, it was interesting because it was a team, right, of volunteers. And I saw that. I saw like the culture I saw at the beginning at the summit was kind of spreading in our own volunteers team, right? So we were kind of, all of us were experiencing that, like while we were translating and getting to know more, like you guys, core stuff. It was so funny because I heard your voice so many times to
So
translate.
annoying.
And Sammy. So it's like I felt like I know you guys already, even though I didn't know you in person.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
really interesting. But anyway, yeah. So I
You
felt that
have no
also.
idea, from my perspective, how strange it is that many people have nightmares, and I'm the bad guy in their nightmare, or I'm the annoying voice in their head. That's it's not a nice thing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So it was. Yeah, I think it was that, like the same environment that I felt like all these, connections, I would say. It was also spreading in our own volunteer team. And I would say until today, like, that's how I met Araceli and Tobias and so many people. And we are still have that connection, right,
Yeah.
until now. So it's like really interesting.
Cool. Yeah. Well, thanks for sticking around. That's how we rope people in. Just kind of grab their arm and yank them in. What about Fernando? How did you kind of meet us?
Yeah.
How did you get introduced?
In my case, I was in South Korea in 2017 in the Global Top Gun Youth Workshop, and in the schedule it says that we were going to have a 2-day workshop on the blessing, right? So me and the group, the members of my group, we were, oh yeah, the blessing, right? It's really nice. We're gonna get some preparation, how to get blessed, something like that, and then they start talking about porn, and I was like, what is this? What can you really talk about this? Is that okay?
Yeah.
But yeah, I was for me, I did really think like, oh, this is amazing, right? Because I really needed that personally, and it was the first time that somebody from the church was talking about it, and talking during the 2 days. I got to learn that a lot of other people, second gen, first gen, they are also struggling with that. And that was also really impactful for me, right? Because you always think you are the only one struggling with that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
feel like, oh, you are the worst because nobody else is struggling with this, right? So that was very life-changing for me. That was one of the highlights of that workshop for me. But after that, of course, I come back to my home and everything goes back to normal, and I don't do anything with it other than just listening to the podcast from time to time and reading some blogs from Robert, because Robert came to Costa Rica as a missionary before that.
Oh, wow.
Before 2017. So I knew Robert. So I want to read what Robert writes. So that was my whole connection with High Noon at the time, and then in 2020, the pandemic came, and I think before that my brother was getting involved in High Noon, and he was really into it. So he told me like, oh, if you need somewhere to talk, like somewhere to share how you feel and stuff like that, you can go to High Noon. So I started getting like as a participant.
I thought he was gonna invite, like, you can talk to me, but it's like, if you want to talk to anybody at all, go over there. Go. Somebody else.
Yes. Yeah. No. It was a lot because he was also working on himself, and also at the time, our family, like, we are really united. We really care about each other a lot, but we have strong personalities, every one of us. So when all of that comes clashing in, it's a bit hard to communicate. And he was in, and we didn't have that practice of talking with each other, my brother and I, at the moment. He wanted to talk to me, but I'm not want to share a lot if I don't have to. So yeah, he recommended me High Noon, and after that, yes, I liked it a lot, and yeah, I started getting involved as a participant, later on as a facilitator, but only with High Noon in English. I don't know why I didn't really try to get involved with High Noon in Spanish. I knew that it was getting started because Hector, my brother, was helping, but I thought that, I'll just let them grow, and I'll just join the one that is already developed.
Yeah. Join the club. Everybody wants to
Exactly.
join something that's already perfect.
Yeah, exactly. um,
I see.
but at some point, Tobias uh, contacted me because he saw that I was being a facilitator in Hainan in English. So he had the bright idea of, well, if he knows how to speak Spanish, maybe he can be a facilitator for Spanish people. Um, so yeah, he asked me, and that's how I first started with Hainan in Spanish as a facilitator. And then last year in October, I started working as
Well,
part of the team, helping
yeah, let's get to that.
Stefany.
So, why did that happen? Why did you guys start working
Um,
for us? You went from a volunteer to a worker. This is like
yeah,
this is
yeah.
the path, right? That I see a lot of people going on, which is, they listen to our podcast, they hang out a bit, they go to our workshops, then they go to our programs, they start joining our programs. If they really get it, they catch fire. They then want to kind of volunteer more, more. And then they eventually start asking us, can they work? Maybe part-time. And then some people do, and then some people end up working full-time. So you guys kind of started going through that process. And so why did you start working for us?
Yeah.
I guess Fernando.
Okay. And yeah, so as you mentioned before, right? My whole family is involved in Hainan, and it started with my brother, and for him it was really all about self development. So he started working a lot on himself, and I could see that. I could see how he was growing and changing, and he wanted to get the rest of the family involved. So, so after I got involved, he started talking with my parents, because there's this whole thing that you are supposed to do where you're supposed to talk with your family about things, So it's important to know how to do that, and in our family we talk about things when we have to, when there is no other choice, right? When we know it's a problem, so if we don't talk about it, it will be a bigger problem. So that's when we talk about things. So we are usually very emotional about it, and it gets really chaotic from time to time. But he wanted to have like more civilized conversations, and he talked to my parents to join and do things, and they joined, and they really liked it. It's something very interesting with Hainan Latin America is that the parents are really strong. They're really a big part of our community, and my parents really needed a place where they could feel heard and feel part of, and they met other parents that were in the same situation, that were having difficulties with their children, or having difficulties with the church, or with their faith in general, or with their spouses. So all of that was really important for my parents as well, so they liked it. And then, so I could see then how Hainan was helping my parents, and also myself, right? I was really helped by it. And then in the case of my sister, when we had a workshop in Costa Rica made by Karina. She was going to Canada to live there, or to visit her husband. And my father told her, like, oh, if you're going to Canada, why don't you stop by Costa Rica and do a small workshop in the way? And she was really open to that, so she planned the whole thing by herself and did it. And a lot of people in Costa Rica liked it. And once again, I was not the only one in Costa Rica that needed this, and that was very shocking to me, because it was not like in Korea, where it was like, oh, there is 2,000 people here, and some people need it, some people don't need it, but you don't know who they are. But in the case of Costa Rica, it was people that I knew that I've grown with my whole life, like my brothers and sisters, and also learning that it was important for them and for my community in Costa Rica. That also really made an impact on me. And at that point, I thought like I want to learn how to help people because I'm with a few other brother, with a brother and a sister. I'm one of the oldest second gen in Costa Rica. I think Stefany is also one of the oldest in Ecuador, right? So she can understand that, right? That feeling of wanting to help your younger brothers, and I really felt that I needed to learn how to deal with this stuff if I wanted to be an effective older brother for them. And yeah, so I thought, I need to learn how to help them, and that's why I continued being a facilitator. But so during the workshop, my sister talked a lot with Karina, and my sister was going through a phase in her life of faith where she needed a change, and Karina offered her to go to Argentina to do an STF type of program in Argentina, and she has really grown from that. So even though it was not directly with High Noon, it was because of Karina's involvement that my sister also was really positively affected. So yeah, my conclusion was everyone in my family is getting helped by High Noon, so I should give something back, right? I should try to help in any way.
Damn right.
So yeah, if the opportunity presented itself, I wanted to take it. Yeah.
And just for all of you people who know anything about geography, just to let you know, Costa Rica is nowhere near either Argentina or Canada. So your dad must have been quite the salesman. I wanted to go back to what you were talking about, Top Gun, because first of all, we got in quite a bit of trouble from some countries for that very point, that some people, it's an interesting, because it's not that I'm against this or negative about it. It's just a different way of thinking about the world, right? But some people believe that if you have a bunch of young people talking about their struggles on from your perspective and from our perspective, that is a huge part of the problem, is that all these people are isolated. So to hear that somebody else is struggling is like a lifeline. It's like, oh my God, I'm not the only one. But from a different perspective, they think that means that we're saying it's okay because look at everybody's struggling, so you can struggle too, right? And so it's a really key point that when we go and we share testimonies as High Noon, it's never to say that, look, it's really not that bad because everybody does it, so just, you shouldn't even feel bad or anything like that. No. It's just that such a massive reason why people end up suffering in life is because they're by themselves, they're isolated. And that's exactly where we're the weakest and we're the most vulnerable. And in order to break out of that, you need to have somebody who speaks your language. If it's just somebody who's like, oh, you should stop doing that, that's not helpful. They don't know what you're going through. But if it's somebody who's been there, and especially if they've overcome, if their testimony is that they've, reached the other side of that, that is like they come into your world and scoop you up and for a moment take you into their world. And so I just wanted to take note of that because, in fact, we got in quite a bit of trouble from some leaders that really misunderstood that whole thing. They're like, how dare you have testimonies in front of other people? That's wrong and all this stuff. And
hey, just a quick interruption to tell you about the 40-day High Noon Challenge. If you're trying to find a way to start living a High Noon life today with no shadows and create a radiant blessing, then this simple challenge is for you. We will send you daily lessons from our team that will keep you motivated on your journey. It's totally free, guys, and you'll get constant content directly to you. Just sign up today at highnoon.org/challenge. That is highnoon.org/challenge. All right, back to the show.
They just didn't get it. I'll just leave it at that. And Stefany, why did you start working with us? you're volunteering, and then since you won't leave, we're like, fine, just take a job since you won't leave.
Basically, it was that. No, no. I was. It was really interesting because in that year I just finished school, and this is just my personal opinion. It was really hard. University was really hard. I didn't want to experience everything I experienced in university, but I finished. I was really happy because I finished university that year, and yeah. So it was when I finished university. I promised myself like everything I'm going to do from now will do something that I really want to do. Like it will be intentional, and it will make me feel like fulfilled. That was a promise that I made to myself after university because the experience was really hard for me. Um, yeah, so from there, I started working in some projects in my area, something like that, like working with conservation stuff, and like I was working at the zoo, and it was really fun. And when you just finish school and you don't feel like you're good enough for any job, right? Because you don't have experience, you don't know anything about the real life, right? um, but I remember when I saw the High Noon application, right? Because it was like a public job application. I saw it and was like, oh my gosh, I do feel like I am the perfect person for this. It was so interesting. Like I never felt that ever in other job applications that I saw, right? Because I just finished school, and so what you do after finishing school is looking for a job. And I never felt that. I was like, oh my gosh. And then, yeah, I don't know. I was a little bit hesitating because it was like, yeah, I don't know if I want to leave all these other jobs that I was having at the time and focus on High Noon. I wasn't sure, but then I was like, this is also really fun. I really like High Noon a lot. And then the last day, I remember Karina called me. She called me for another thing. I don't even remember what we were talking about. And then she was like, this is the last day, and I didn't say your name. And I was like, I don't know. She kind of convinced me to apply. And I just felt that I was like, I know I am the right person. I don't want to sound arrogant or something, but I just knew it. I just was like, I don't know. This is like the perfect job for me. And then I started working with Tobias and Karina at the time, and I was learning so much. And then I'm really grateful to make that choice because it's been really fun working with all of you guys, and I learned a lot about myself and a lot about our communities, and I think that's really important. And I always tell this to every time as they ask me like about High Noon. I feel like I always will be here, guys. Sorry, you won't get rid of me. Because I really like it. I think this is really like a family, like a community, and I am part of this. And it's really nice to work here, right? Like actually, contribute more like as a staff. So yeah, I think that's how I get into this.
Thank you. So as a mechanical engineer, you're building a bridge between Latin America and God.
Oh my God.
Yeah? Is that too much? Too soon? So what's been going on down there? You guys are working. You guys are building something. I think a lot of people don't understand what's been going on. You guys just had what I heard, a fairly busy month, but give us a recap of what's going on in Latin America. So what is Latin America? Honestly speaking, American, Canadian education system, not so great, so maybe people don't even know. What is Latin America versus South America, Central America? Help us understand the geography and what's going on in there. What are you guys doing?
Yeah, so basically, from my understanding, Latin America is everything that is down United States, basically. So maybe that's easier to understand. And most of us speak Spanish, and also there's a big part of us that speak Portuguese. That is Brazil. Brazil is like their own continent. And like I said, we have really different cultures and like so many different things, but I say we kind of share one heart, right, and one language and one big culture of Latinos. And I feel like we experience that in Hainan, right? So it's almost like America, I will say. To be honest, also sometimes we don't know what's happening, what is happening up. But yeah, I would say it's almost the same. So we have programs, we have our own social media that has been growing a lot. So if you want to know more, if you want to learn Spanish or Portuguese, you can go to our social media. It's really easy. It's like Hainan, Espanol, or Portuguese.
You can learn what
And
porn and masturbation are in Spanish.
yeah. And yeah, it's been pretty. We have a lot of, I mean, we have some groups, right, for Ascender. We have our own version of core, kind of. We have a school of love, like Fernando was mentioning, like parents. Parents are really a big part of our community now, and it's really interesting. They are the best participants. They always answer. They always come to our events. They always have feedback. They are the best participants, to be honest. The youth sometimes is like hard uh, to speak with them, but anyway. Um, and yeah, I think that's it. And we, because Latin America is huge, right? It's been really hard to do in-person events. I think we kind of got stuck in that for a while. And also Latin America culture is pretty it's not so easy to trust like in other people, in like new people, new stuff, right? So Hainon is pretty new actually here in Latin America, especially for like some communities and some leadership. Um, so they are really like, I don't know what is this. I cannot allow this new thing to come to my community. So that's been also a little bit hard. But I feel like this year was really the beginning of opening a lot of doors in a lot of communities here in Latin America. So actually, this last month we have a tour, an in-person tour, and it was really interesting. It was really fun. It was really tired, but it was really amazing. We had one before last year, but just in two countries, Costa Rica and Dominican Republic. That was also amazing. Yeah, so I feel like now the doors are kind of opening more to Hainon in Latin America. Um, yeah, I don't know if Fernando wants to add something.
Yeah, no, the and with the tours, a lot of what happened, like for example, last year when we went to when Hainun, at the time I was not uh, in the group, but when Hainun went to Dominican Republic and Costa Rica, is that a lot of people know a little bit about it. They've heard of Hainun, they've seen the reels or the podcasts, but they don't have. They need like a push to get involved into the groups, like I was before. So doing a tour or doing in-person events is like the push they need to really participate. And we had that with Central America, and now after that, the Dominicans and the Costa Ricans and little by little other countries as well in Central America started getting involved in Hainun a lot more. And and Uncle Dave actually thought that, yeah, South America really needs that as well. So that little push, right? And especially countries so important in the province like Brazil, Argentina, and Bolivia, which were the three countries that we went to. There are people there that know about Hainun, but they needed that push. And yeah, every country that we went to, every person that we talked to, they are always positively impacted by that, and especially the participants, the youth, which is why we do that, why we do what we do,
Yeah.
right? Especially the youth, you could really see in person how they are positively helped by that, and it's really different from doing a Zoom call or something like that. Yeah, the experience is very different for us and for the participants.
Yeah, Uncle Dave is a little bit like, he's got that Christopher Columbus spirit, where he'll take out his sword and he'll say, "We need to go west." And the rest of us are normally like, it takes us a couple seconds to be like, "Really? Are you sure? Do we?" Okay. So we got to dust ourselves off and get into the travel mode. And you guys know, you're initiated now that it's a lot of work. And I can tell the big difference between Uncle Dave when he's on tour and when he's at home. He's always looking for projects and always looking to take over the world. But it's like gasoline is poured on his fire. When he's meeting with leaders and he's going around, I start getting all these texts and like, "We got to do this, we got to do this, we got to do this," and he gets so fired up. But I really feel like he's having give and take with Heavenly Parents' excitement on such a high level, because he sees the potential. He sees that, look, people's lives are changing. Let's jump on this. And that's exactly True Parents. Like, True Father was famous for that. I was just thinking about that the other night, that always after an event, like those big events, like Washington, the Washington Monument and all that, it was like they would meet after planning and executing this amazing event. He'd be like, "You guys did great, and guess what? We're gonna do another one." And they're like, "No," and he's like, "Yeah," because God is just like, "Yes, now." And when you guys become parents, you'll realize that's part of the idea of like the heart of a child is like, when you come home from work, your kids are like, "We are playing now," and you're like, "I'm so tired." And they're not thinking about that. They're just like, it's time to play. And so you gotta feed into that energy and like just appreciate that we're part of a movement that's actually moving, right? And so we are actually moving, and sometimes that requires to literally move. So I heard great things from the report, and also I heard Peace TV put your tour on the broadcast, and I know that they showed it to some leaders in Japan. It helped. So you never know. It always is helping. So talking about Uncle Dave being fired up, I want to know, what are you guys most fired up about? You guys have been doing this for a while, and as you know, motivation can come and go. Like, you could be motivated to work on a project, but then you could just as easily get so frustrated, right? So motivation is very cheap, but there's something deep inside. There's got to be like a deeper fire in there. So what's getting you guys fired up these days about kind of your work, and why are you sticking around?
I guess before the tour, I have already seen a little bit how people can really be affected by porn and masturbation, right? And how well people can hide it. I know how well I could hide it, and I could see how other people can really hide it. But when they talk about it, it's like being free, like having like you are holding that for so long, and you finally can talk about it, and it's like everything comes pouring down, and it's really important. So in the tour, we had one activity where people really shared their heart, they shared their situation, and Stefany often told me after the activities that I would come out and I would have like tears in my eyes and stuff like that, and she would know, oh, the activity was really nice, and I didn't really think about it, like I didn't really notice that I was tearful or something like that. But seeing how people share their experience, getting to know people's story, like every single person has a story that they go through, and for others it may not be important, it may be meaningful, but for them is their life. So when they are able to talk about their shadows without any judgment, you can really feel connected with the person. So every single time that we did the activity, everyone felt more connected. Everyone felt like more like brothers and sisters. Well, in the case we did it separately, so every brother felt more like a brother with each other. So that feeling of getting so close to a person in such little time, because we were doing like only 2 days in each country, but after the time we were in the country, we felt like, oh, this is my family, this is the people we care about. We're still talking about the people we met in Bolivia, which was the first country, and we talk about the people we met in Argentina, in Brazil. So it's really interesting how you can feel connected to a person so fast just by talking about their deepest things that they have. So I'm fired up about getting to know people, like getting to really know them, really get connected with them, and yeah, I want to keep getting to know people and helping them get to know themselves, I guess. Yes.
Yeah, it never gets old, right? Seeing people be born again makes you born again each time, vicariously through them. That's also a really important point. Why True Mother's really always asking people to go talk about her and go like, and why True Father was always like, go witnessing, because every time you're able to help somebody experience a rebirth, it makes a part of you be reborn as well. And we see that all the time. Like when you see somebody be liberated from their own shadows, you can breathe that same air that they're breathing, of like the collective shadow just getting weaker and weaker and weaker. So yeah, that's amazing that you guys got to experience that weekend after weekend after weekend on the tour. What about you, Stefany?
I think it's similar to Fernando. I don't know, it's pretty interesting. I remember a lot of people always ask us, right, like, oh, which country was the best? Which community was the best? And of course, we're different, right? Like, we're different people, of course. But, at the same, it's just all just brothers and sisters together, And that is so amazing. Like, we can experience that as Hainan, but also as part of this community that we are in, right? And, yeah, it's just that environment, right? Of course, in person, you can feel it more because you are there, physically with your brothers and sisters. And it's so interesting, Ria, because that's what I was sharing before. Like, that environment was the one that made me stay, right? Because it's that environment of like, oh, I can be myself here. I feel safe here. I can talk to you as my brother, as my sister, like truly as even uncles, right, and aunties. And really feel like a family, because we have so many stuff, like we have school and work and all these things, and we have all these different versions of myself, and we don't have the space to be ourselves, right? So it was so amazing to be in the workshop and see all these, especially sisters, right? All these sisters like just be themselves, and like trusting us, trusting me. I was just this new person that they never met before, but they felt like, oh, I can trust you. And I heard that a lot actually during this tour, and I was like, wow, that was like, oh my gosh. Because I feel like we were doing that. We were like, oh, we are not here to tell you what you have to do with your life, or that you have problems or anything. We're just here as your brother, as your sister, and we just want to help you, And I do feel they felt that hard, And it's interesting because you have to be there to feel it, because all the leaders or all the people that were kind of skeptical a little bit, after they actually experienced our heart, they were like, oh, now I get it. And it was so interesting. Like, definitely, I think all of them was like a before and after the workshop, and that was amazing, And we have, like Fernando said, we are really excited about, like, oh my gosh, I really want to have groups in Bolivia and Argentina and Brazil and keep working with them. I think that's also pretty interesting in High Noon, because it's not like, oh, let's have a 2-day worship and that's it, right? It's like, oh, let's continue talking about it, let's continue helping you, you know. And I think that's our motivation, like, oh, see all these people, like, yeah, having their best life without shadows, right? Whatever the shadow is. So, yeah.
I think it's very hard for people to believe that our motivations are pure, that we will travel around and go and just open the door to liberation and usher people in, take care of them, go that extra mile to do whatever it takes for them to experience Heavenly Parent, experience love with themselves, you know, to experience forgiveness, grace, you know, all these things, without some sort of secret hidden agenda. You know, like you were saying, it's like we're not even there to educate them in our philosophy. Everything we're doing is setting them up to be able to experience liberation and to maintain it for themselves, for their own life, for their own blessing, for their own future. And there's always a catch in society. There's always a catch. It's either money. They need to now believe that, you know, we're the Messiah, something like some like, it's called the bait and switch. We get them in the door, we gain their trust, and then we steal them or something like that. So naturally people are quite skeptical, is the word that you were saying. But isn't it so nice to just show up and give and just give freely? Isn't it like the best feeling in the world? It's like the most heavenly feeling is like, I'm here for you. It's like, yeah, it's a wonderful feeling. I just have one more question for you guys, because I'm about to get kicked out of this place. This is my office space, and it closes very soon. Getting some looks. But I was wondering, where do you see High Noon in 5 years from now? If God was really, Heavenly Parent's hands were on High Noon, and you were so blessed that all of your dreams were coming true, then what does High Noon look like in Latin America in 5 years?
Oh, wow. Very nice question. In 5 years, High Noon in Latin America would be known as a place that connects families. Because right now, a lot of the parents are involved, right? But for the youth, because Latin America as a movement, like in the unification movement, we're pretty young. The second generation is pretty young. There are a few older second gen, but most of us are young, like in our 20s or even lower. And so we need that connection with an older figure, like a brotherhood, right? So I think that High Noon can really help connect families, their parents with their children, and also brothers from different countries, so that you don't feel that, oh, maybe in my country, for example, Costa Rica is very small, so I feel alone in my country. But because of the unification movement and also High Noon, you feel that, oh, I have brothers in Mexico, I have brothers in Dominican Republic, I have brothers in Argentina, in Bolivia, and I feel connected with them and connected with true parents, thanks to that bridge that High Noon is building, right? And so I feel that in 5 years, High Noon will be a family of Latin Americans, where parents have a place to go, where couples have a place to go, and sons and daughters and brothers and sisters can have a place to go and share their heart, right? And when you feel the grace and the love of God, yeah. So yeah, family. I really like that, the family.
I feel like our movement is the thread that ties different cultures together beyond backgrounds and histories. Like, there's no reason for so many of these people to be in the same room, let alone be blessed with one another, starting families together, because they have totally different backgrounds. But then High Noon is like a thread in there that brings our movement together. Because I'm sure you've seen this, that people can be in the same community. They could be in the same house and not know each other as well as they know their group of people that they meet once a week with for 1 hour, because that's the most honest that they're able to be in their entire lives, in the entire world. So Yeah, that's absolutely possible for sure. I almost called you High Noon. Your name is Fernando, not High Noon. Uh, but the idea of like a really tight knit family, worldwide, global, very tight knit family, because we're the type of people that can argue with each other and apologize to each other. We're the type of people that can share our biggest fears together. We don't do that as a movement because we're always focused on the ideal. We don't dare talk about our fears or insecurities because it's like disempowering. But what if we use those to get to know each other, to be closer together so that we can then build something on top of that trust? That's powerful. So I love it, Fernando. Thank you. Stefany?
I feel like what you were sharing, it was so interesting because we're in Hainan for so long, right? So for us, it's so like normal, like to talk about our feelings and talk about our problems. But then when you realize like it's not normal, it's like, what? You don't talk about your feelings? But yeah, so I just remember our tour environment. It was really like that. It was so funny. Anyway, Hainan in 5 years. I don't know if I am going too far. I hope not. But I feel like Hainan, by then it will be more than just this organization that is helping people. That actually will be a culture in families. You know, like this is what I'm talking about. Like, oh, Hainan will be so like powerful that they experience that in their families. Like we will have families that talk about their problems. They will be open in the family and in their own communities. You know, I feel like I think that's what we all want, right? Of course, we're an organization that's helping people. We want to grow as an organization, but more than that, we do want to Hainan culture to be everywhere, right? So my wish is like every country in Latin America, every small community have that culture, right? Because it's so interesting. It's like when you have one person, it starts spreading and spreading and spreading and spreading. It was like coronavirus or something. I don't know. It's like, you know, and it's so interesting. Of course, it takes time and it takes to work on yourself. That is hard, right? We all of us are working on ourselves every day. We are not like perfect or something, but it gets easier, right? So that's what I want to see in 5 years. Like all the countries in Latin America have at least, you know, the seed of this culture in their own communities and start spreading more and more and more. And of course, Hainan can be that organization that can help you if you need it. But more than that is in your family, in your own blessing, in your own life, right? Like it's a Hainan life, not just it's something outside, you know. That I think that's the problem. At the beginning, we see something like, oh, Hainan is something outside. It's like an organization there. But it's not that. It's actually a culture, and that true parents and heavenly parents want us to live every day, right? So, yeah, I don't know if I'm going too far or too ideal, but I wish that for our beautiful Latin America.
That's what we want. That's what we've always wanted, is to do such a good job that people don't need us anymore, right? Because we're only here as the kind of adopted parent, adopted family, adopted brother, adopted sister. We're creating the infrastructure that should naturally exist in everybody else's life. Like everybody should have parents that they can talk to. They should have brothers and sisters that they can talk to. But the reality is that most people don't. So just keep on working, Stefany. Don't give up. And you guys can do it in Latin America. So thank you guys so much for stopping by. And I just checked. Fernando is not on the website. But Stefany is. Stefany, you can reach her on our website, Stefany@hainan.org. Are you Fernando at hainan.org? Do you have at least an email address, Fernando?
Yeah. Very easy. Fernando@hainan.org. Very easy.
Yes.
Yes.
Sweet. So reach out to them if you have any questions, if you want to help. We have Spanish-speaking people that could help. I don't know. There's something. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for all that you do and for stopping by.
Thank you, Andre, for having us.
Thank you.
Hey, did you know that our team wants to do more events? Well, if you want to bring the High Noon message to your community or group, then let us know and we'll try to work something out. There's a simple application that you can fill out right now at highnoon.org/invite. And one of our team members will get back to you to see what's possible. That's highnoon.org/invite. All right, see you in the next episode.